Hi crafters, welcome to Sasha K Creations. Today I'm going to teach you how to make this ink box. I used the Café Parisian collection from Graphic 45 to decorate it. And then I added glossy accents to some of the details on the top. Here on the front I have a piece of chipboard and some ribbon. And the ribbon goes all the way around the box with a nice bow in the back. And then I have these metal hinges and I just attached them with some regular brads. As you can see, it doesn't completely line up here in the front. The lid is a tiny bit too small, so I adjusted some of the measurements for the lid. In the front I also have a metal hook closure and it opens up like this. And this is what is inside. You have room for your favorite ink pads. I designed this for the Ranger Distress ink pads, but you can of course use it for whichever ink pad you have. It can also hold some re-inkers, or you can use this for 2 more ink pads. And in the back I made room for some spray stains or mica sprays. A little piece of ribbon here, and if you pull it you reveal this room in the lid. You can use this for a couple of ink tools or some mini ink pads, and of course some of the ink daubers. I also have some embossing glaze and you can fit 4 of them in here. I should have put the embossing glazes on the bottom of this instead of in the top because they are a little heavy. So if I could do it over, then I would just switch out the shelf spacing. And then hopefully they wouldn't pull down on the lid so much, because it kind of lifts up the bottom of the box, but it's not gonna break or anything. This is held closed with some magnets I have inside here, so it's not gonna open while the box is closed. So yeah, this is the box we're gonna make, and as I said, I am gonna adjust the measurements for the lid. But I hope you like the box and want to try to make it. I fussy cut some of the cakes and flowers from the beautiful collection and added them to the top of the box, but I didn't want to add anything else to the sides because sometimes, you know, less is more. Let's get to the materials.
First we're gonna need some black chipboard, then we're gonna need the Café Parisian 12 by 12, the Café Parisian chipboards, and some black cardstock. Then you'll need a good work surface. I use the Tim Holtz Media Mat. And you'll need a scoreboard, a paper trimmer, some scissors, a poke tool or pick tool, a bone folder, an ink tool, and a black ink pad. I'm using the classic black ink pad from Graphic 45. And some of the precious pink trim. A pencil with an eraser, score tape, glue. I usually have 2 so I can grab the other one when one of them clogs up. Then we'll need a couple of hinges. I'm using these middle ones. And some kind of closure. I am using a hook closure. And some brads to attach them.
And for the little hatch inside, we're going to use 6 magnets.
And last but not least, we need a ruler. Now I've put a cutting guide in the description below, and please follow that with the exact measurements to make sure that your pieces will fit together. For the bottom, we need the A, B, C, the 2 D's, and the 4 E's. Let me just show you a little tip to cut out the D's. Cut a piece at 6.5 by 5 3/8, and take piece B and C. Place them under the big piece and make a mark where they meet. Then flip it over and do it on the other side as well. Make a line between the marks and cut. And then for the top, we need F, the 4 G's, the 3 H's, the I, and the J.
Now take your black cardstock and start cutting up a lot of strips at 1.5 inches. And we need a lot, so you can just start with 2 or 3 sheets of paper. And we also need some strips at 1 inch, so we'll make some of those as well. Then take your scoreboard and start scoring all of the strips in the middle. The big one at 3/4 and the small one at 1/2 inch. Now put a strip of score tape on each side of the score lines, from one end to the other. And you need to do that with all of your cardstock strips. We need all of these to assemble the box. And the score tape doesn't have to be at the edge or in the middle or anything. This is just to hold it all together while the glue dries. And now remember to burnish everything. And when you run out of these strips, you can always make some more. Now start with the A piece and the B and C and the 2 D's. We're going to assemble the pieces like this, and we're going to start by cutting some of those strips we made before at 6.5 inches. Do 4 of these. So we have 1 for each side of the A piece. Now remove the anti-sticky things and add some glue all over. Press the 2 pieces you want to put together right up against each other and make sure that the score line is at the seam, and burnish with your bone folder. Now if you think it's easier to place the strip at 1 piece at a time, you of course just do that. Just make sure that when you glue it down that the pieces are still right up against each other. There should be no air in between. And burnish with your bone folder. This is one of the most important steps. We want to press out all the air bubbles and all of that excess glue. It might be a good idea to cut off the corners so all the cardstock strips won't double layer. And when you glue on the sides, make sure that you put the strip on the right side, and that is the one we cut straight. And again, we want to press that right up against the bottom piece. And burnish. And the last one. And make sure to wipe off any excess glue with a dry cloth. And now it's time to assemble all the corners. Cut your strips at the same height as your corners. And cut off the corners of your strips. And now with these, we're just gonna do one side at a time, because if we fold up the corners first, we might have a hard time burnishing to both sides at the same time. Now, as you can see, I am just gluing the hinges on to the D pieces first, or the sides of the bottom box. And then I'm gonna glue them on to the back and the front of the box after. Fold your small strips before adding the glue, and then place the pieces up against each other and burnish from the inside of the box. And continue to do that with all 4 corners. The last 2 corners you might have to do at the same time. And don't forget to burnish. And now we have something that looks like a box. Now we just need to put some more strips on from the outside. This should be very easy. Again, you might want to cut at least the bottom corners. I did not do it on this one. And I think that my layering got a little too thick because I'm also going to be adding more strips at the bottom of the box. So yeah, you cut your corners before gluing your strips on. And continue to do that with all 4 corners. Now we are just gonna do the bottom of the box, and I'm using a full size strip here. I am starting with the sides and I'm just folding it around the corners, as you can see. Make sure to burnish. Then we're gonna do a little cut into the corner. I'm doing a small V. And then we can glue those down to the bottom of the box. And the other side as well. Then we're going to take a new full-size strip and press that onto the side as well. And make sure that it overlaps with the first strip we put on just a little bit. And fold that around the corner. Cut the corners so you can fold it down under the bottom. And fold those down. And again, be sure to burnish. Now we just need the last corner, so we're going to take a small piece and place that on the corner of the box. Again, cut out the corner and press down the strip under the bottom. Now we're going to do the top of the side pieces. And because the 2 sides are crooked, we have to cut the pieces to fit in length, instead of just doing a full size strip like we did on the bottom. And the last piece. Now the base of the bottom box is finished, then we can get started on the inside. I mentioned earlier that you should have 4 E-pieces, but of course you should have 5. Sorry about that. We're gonna cut 20 small strips at 2 1/4, 4 for each of the E-pieces. We need 1 piece at both ends on both sides, glued on like so. That should keep you busy for a couple of minutes. Oh, and of course you still need the score line to be right at the edge of your pieces. Now we also need to add a longer piece at the bottom, 1 on each side as well, like so. And don't forget to burnish and wipe off any excess glue. Then when you have done all of your pieces, we're going to start decorating them on both sides. Get your paper pack and find this sheet. This is what it looks like on the back. We're going to cut that up like so. Start with this strip on the left side. We're going to save that one for later. And then cut off a piece from the right side at 6 7/16. Then cut 2 pieces of that at 4 1/2. And save the leftover piece. Now the piece you have left, you're going to cut 6 7/16 from the bottom of that and save the leftover. And then cut that down to 4 1/2, so you have 3 pieces in the same size. We're going to use the back of the paper to cover up 3 of our room separators. Then we're going to use this sheet to cut out the 2 last pieces for the room separators. And we need to cut those the same size as the other ones, of course. Ink the edges with your classic black ink pad, and only the edges. We don't want to distress anything. We just want to cover up the white edges. Then score all of them in the middle, like so, and fold them at the score lines. We're going to glue them onto our separators, but first we need to make sure that they fit and that they won't go over the edge at the bottom. Do one side at a time and cover it completely in glue and press it down. And don't forget to burnish and then do the other side. Now we're just going to do that to all of them. So we now have 5 separators that are covered in paper. Now we need to place them inside the box. So fold out all of the hinge strips and start by peeling off the anti-sticky thingies off the bottom and adding your glue. Then carefully press that down to the bottom of the box, and I am using my bone folder that is 1 inch wide to put in between, so I make sure that I have enough room. And when you're sure that it is straight, you can start pressing down the small flaps at the bottom. Then we're going to do the sides, and those can be a little more tricky. Maybe start with one side at a time. And again, make sure that it is straight before pressing it down. Like so. Then burnish and repeat on the other side. Do that with all 5 dividers. And start with a pink one. Make sure you have 1 inch in between all of them. Then do a striped one, another pink, a striped, and a pink for last. Now you should have a little more space between the last one and the back of the box. So you should be able to fit a distress spray of some sort in the back of the box. Sorry. Now when all of your dividers are stuck and dry, we can do the outside of the box. And we're going to use this sheet and cut it up like so. We need 4 pieces the same size as the sides. We're going to cut from the bottom and save the top piece. And then when you've cut the pieces for the sides, you're going to ink the edges. And then glue on all of your pieces one by one. And burnish. Remember to do the 2 pieces for the sides so they mirror each other. If they are exactly the same, then one of them are going to face the wrong way, and we don't want that. Now we're going to take this sheet to decorate the inside of the box. And again, we need 4 pieces the same size as the sides on our box. And we can start with the front piece and the back piece. And now the sides are a little more tricky because we need to cut out all of those dividers. So the sides are completely covered as well. I am going to cut out all of those while my paper is still straight at the top, so I have more paper to hold onto. And I'm just laying it against all of the dividers. And then I'm going to take my pencil and make a mark at all of the dividers. Like so. Then measure 2 1/4 from the bottom and draw a line at each mark. Make sure they're straight. And then cut on each side of those lines. Make sure you have room enough for the dividers. And if you need to cut just a little more, then do that. As you can see, I need to take a little more of the sides. And when they fit, you can cut off the crooked piece like so. One of my pieces fell off, but that is okay. And then we're gonna try to ink them as good as we can, but be careful because they are fragile. Just do as much as you can without ripping your paper. Now we've inked all the 4 pieces, so now we can glue them in. I'm starting with the sides as they are the most difficult. Add your glue and then press them down over the dividers and then up against your side and burnish.
Same thing on the other side. Be careful not to rip your paper. And don't press it up against the side until you're sure it hit the bottom. Then you can just go ahead and press that down. And burnish. Then we can do the back and the front. This should be easy enough. Again, press it down until it hits the bottom before attaching it to the back of your box, and then burnish. And repeat with the piece for the front. Okay, so now we're done with the bottom box. Now it's time to do the top. And for that, we need the rest of our chipboard pieces. Again, we're going to start with the base. So we need the F piece and the 4 Gs. And we're going to put those together exactly like we did with the bottom. We're going to start the inside of the box and putting on all of the 4 sides to the bottom of the box. And then we're going to do the inside of the corners like so. And then the outside. Start with the corners and then all the way around the bottom. And then finish with the top of the box. This time we can do a whole strip at a time. We just need to cut into the corners and use some smaller pieces where you might be missing something. Remember to burnish and wipe off excess glue. Then find this sheet of paper. We're going to use the back. And we're going to cut 5 pieces that are the same size as our chipboard pieces for the box. And we're going to use all of these to decorate the outside of the box. But first, we of course need to ink all of the edges. And then we can just start gluing them on one by one. Remember to burnish each piece. And if you get any excess glue, wipe that off with a dry cloth. And now we have covered the outside. And I'm just checking to see how it fits on my bottom box. Now we need piece H, I, and J. This is to make the little hatch inside. Start by placing a strip on each side of the eyepiece, like so. And we're going to place the J next to that, but this time we're going to put a piece of chipboard in between so that it can bend both ways. And do the same thing with the H on the other side. And burnish both pieces. And wipe off any excess glue. And then we're going to add 2 strips on the other side as well. And then score in between the pieces with your bone folder so it can bend easily. Then we're going to add another strip at the bottom of the H piece. And we're going to do that on both sides. And then we're going to place some smaller strips on each side of the H piece, just like we did with all the E's. Remember both ends on both sides. Burnish and remove excess glue. Now we need to add some magnets, so we're going to place 3 small pieces of score tape on the J piece. Place your magnets on the score tape. And then place a strip of score tape over all the magnets. Now I took some of all the leftovers to decorate this piece. You just need to measure and cut all of it into size. You can use whatever paper you like. You can also cut into a new piece if you don't want to use the leftovers. But I like to get as much out of my paper as possible.
Now I want to do the JPs like I did all the E's, where I wrap the paper over the edge. And then I'm gonna ink all the paper I'm gonna use and glue on the paper starting with the JPs. When you burnish, be careful around the magnets and flip over the other side. Then I'm gonna glue this piece onto the edge. And this one goes on the other side of the edge. Now I'm gonna do some paper patchwork kind of thing. And that little light blue frame with the cake inside, I want to save that for the top of the box. So I'm going to be careful not to cut into that. Now this is what I want to end up with. Flip all the pieces over and use your score tape to put them together. Press them as close together as you can while adding the tape. Do that to all of them. And again, you don't have to do this exact design. This is just an idea to get all of those leftovers used. Remember to burnish all of the tape. Ink the edges like you would with every other piece of paper. Remove the anti-sticky thingies and add your glue. And carefully place it on the eyepiece. Now we're going to do the little pull tab, so we need to find the middle. And I'm measuring about 1/2 inch from the top of the H piece. Then we're going to make a mark at 1/4 inch from the middle on each side and make a hole on each mark. I'm just using the smallest hole on my hole punch. If you don't have a hole punch, you can use your pick tool or a really thick needle. Then we're going to take our precious pink trim and use the one at the bottom. Stick it through one of the holes. Pull it through. Cut the piece you need and put that through the other hole. Glue down the ends of the trim on the other side. Use your bone folder to burnish. Cover it with score tape and find a piece of paper you like to use to cover it and ink the edges and place it on top. And now we're going to do the other H pieces like we did all the E's. Put some strips at the bottom and on each side. And then cut out 2 pieces of paper that are big enough to go over the edges and score them in the middle. Fold them. Ink the edges. And glue them down. I'm just doing one side at a time. And the other one. First, we're going to glue in our hatch. Add some glue to the bottom strips and press it down into the box. Make sure that the hatch closes up straight before pressing it down. Then glue down the sides. Burnish and remove excess glue. Now we're going to do the dividers, and I took a jar of embossing glaze to make sure that I have room for that. But as I mentioned earlier, I recommend that you make sure that you have room for it at the bottom instead of at the top, because they are heavy and they're going to be pulling down on the lid and lifting up the bottom. Now we're going to do the other one, and this time I want to make sure that I
have room for my ink tool.
Then place in your divider and press it down at the bottom and do the sides after. Now we're going to decorate the insides, and I am using the cherry paper. And for the sides, we need to make marks where all the dividers are, just like we did with the bottom. Then we're going to measure 1 3/4 up and draw a line. And then cut on each side of the line to make room for the chipboard. I am a little generous with the spacing this time. Check to see if you can get it to fit. And then do the same thing with the other one. Ink the edges. And try to get as much of the inside as you can. Add your glue and place them inside. This can be a little tricky because of the hatch. But when you have it in the right spot, go ahead and press that down. Turn it to the side and burnish with your bone folder. Same thing on the other side. And again, it can be a little tricky to get it in, but you can just wipe off any excess glue. Now we need to attach the little closure hook before we add paper to the front and back. The one I'm using has to be almost at the edge to reach the other one. Find the middle and place it and draw some marks where you're gonna poke some holes. And make sure your holes are big enough for brads to go through. Then stick a brad through the closure and the box and do the same thing on the other side. And now the tails on the brads need to go sideways, or the tails are gonna stick out of the box. So make sure that you've turned them the right way. And use something hard to press against the tails to make them completely flat. I'm using acrylic black. Then we're going to add 3 more magnets on our hatch. Add some tape and close it up so the magnets stick to the inside of the front. And press them down. And now you can add your paper. Slide it down carefully and press it down when you have it in the right place. Use your bone folder to burnish and be careful around the magnets. And then we're going to attach our hinges in the back. Now if you're measuring from the middle of the box to the edge, I am placing them in the middle of that part. I hope it makes sense. Like if you divide your box into like 2 sides and then placing the hinges in the middle of both sides. Like we did with the closure, we're gonna make some marks where the holes are and poke some holes with our pick tool. Then we're gonna slide our brads through the holes. And again, use something hard to press up against the legs to make them flat. Repeat on the other side. Now you have your hinges in the top box. Now we can add the last piece of paper for the sides. Cover it in glue, slide it down and press that up against the side. And then I have this piece I want to use at the bottom. So ink the edges, add your glue and press that down. Now the last 3 pieces we need are going inside the hatch. I found them in my scraps and cut them to fit the bottom. And again, if you want to use something else, you can. I just like to use the sheets I already cut into, so I don't end up with a ton of scraps left I don't know what to do with. Try to burnish the best you can. And then our top is done and just needs to be attached to the bottom. I'm gonna attach another piece of chipboard for the top to rest on. And also, so the hinges are at the same level, I am using a piece of this strip. I'm cutting it at 6.5, so it's the same size as the box. Ink the edges. Find a piece of chipboard in your scraps and cut it down to fit the little paper strip. Place the strip on top of the chipboard. Then measure 2.25 from the bottom of the box in the back and make some pencil marks. Place the piece of chipboard right under the pencil marks, like so, and press it down. And just give it a minute to dry. Then you can put the top on and press it down to the piece of chipboard. Make some pencil marks in the holes of the hinges, like so. Poke through both layers. Make room enough for your brads to go through. Now this can be a little tricky because you kind of have to do all of them at the same time. Press the brads through the holes. You might need to pull them through with some pliers. And again, use something hard to flatten down the legs. Then we're going to take the rest of the strip we cut into before, ink the edges, and place that over the brad legs. Carefully press it down and burnish. Now we just need the bottom of the closure. When you know where to attach it, hold onto it and draw pencil marks inside the holes. And use a pick tool to poke through like we did all the other ones. Push your brads through the closure and the chipboard. And flatten down the legs. And now the box is almost done. We just need to add a few more details. Get out your chipboards and some scraps. I ended up not using the big pink piece, but I did fussy cut a lot of the cakes from the two other pieces and the blue trim with the cake in the middle. And then we're gonna use this piece to decorate the front of the box. Ink the edges on your chipboard piece and all your fussy cuts. You can add more if you want, but I choose to keep it pretty simple this time. I want the chipboard to be in the front and I want to use some of this trim to wrap around the top of the box. So I am gonna put that through the holes in the chipboard. And I of course want it to go behind the chipboard and not in front of it. Pull as much through so you can wrap it around your box and tie a pretty bow behind it. Cut off a little more than you think you need, just to be on the safe side. Then add some glue to your chipboard and place that in the front of your box. Give that just a second to dry before adding glue to your ribbon and wrapping that around. Luckily, the pattern of the paper makes it easier to get it straight. Tie your ribbon together in the back of the box and make a pretty bow. You might need to cut some off. I'm doing a little V-cut at the ends. Add a little bit of glue on some of the bow just to keep it the shape you want. And I am happy with this. Now I just need to decorate the top. Start with this big piece, add some glue to the back all over, and place it right in the middle. Then take one of your fussy cuts and add your glue and place it in the corner. Carefully press it down. I'm going to do another flower one in the opposite corner, like so. And then I am just gonna place some small cakes in the other two corners. This is what it looks like now. Then I'm just gonna go ahead and add some glossy accents. I'm only adding it to the green leaves and the cherries and the glaze on the cake. You know, things that would be shiny in real life, I'm also adding to the cake stand. And some on the leaves over here. And the last cherry. And now the box is done. It just needs to dry. Let me know what you think. If you make a box like this, please share some photos on the Graphic 45 official community page on Facebook. Thank you for watching my tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel and click the bell to be notified. Have a nice day and happy crafting!